Hi there and welcome back to the History of Fleetwood Mac. I'm Anita. Today we're going to get into part 2, I believe, of my books, my Fleetwood Mac collection of books. I had mentioned in the first video that I'd pulled out as much as I could that I had in the house of my books, and I definitely know it's not all of them. But then, funny enough, I just found 2 more that weren't, I don't believe, in the video that I had shown where I kind of just did a panoramic view of all my books. So I'm going to start with those because those kind of were the older books. And one of them I actually just got in the mail the other day. It's actually a songbook, which, again, I thoroughly believe it goes in the books. And I just took a chance on this one. I had never purchased it before. I actually don't have the Rumors songbook. I don't believe there's any. I'm not even sure if there's pictures in it, and that's probably why I don't. But this one I asked them and they said, oh, there's a couple. So I just took a chance. It was like $3. And I'm glad I did. It's kind of a cool little book. I'm not fixing to learn the organ anytime soon, but if I wanted to, at least I know it's available to me. Definitely some photos, nothing unseen or anything like that, but just a really nice collection. Then it gets into the sheet music. Then I think, then the back page. Yeah, like I said, it was just like a little $3 find online. I think like with shipping, it was like 7 something. So I'm really glad I got it. And this came out in 1977. So that definitely should have gone with my older books in the first video. But like I said, I think I got this in the mail a couple of days after I'd made that video. So, but something that I had already, but I had it with my magazines because I was just showing a friend of mine. And I will show the magazine, and eventually when I get the magazines, I'll show this again, and I'll also show the book. But this is kind of a hard-to-find book. Bob Jones was a martial arts expert, and he was kind of somehow got into the job of taking care of rock and roll personalities. Stevie and Christine, Linda Ronstadt, several bands and such. Then he made a book. Prior to this book coming out, though, if I'm not mistaken, because this book came out in 1983, so I'm correct. Because prior to the book, he was in this issue of Karate magazine, Karate, which I took for like a hot second when I was a little girl. So I know that there is, you are supposed to put that little spin on the word somehow. 22 here. So he was in the magazine long before he had done the book. And I think in keeping up with it, he was probably, blessed and able to make the book. The book came out in 1983. What I will have to say about the book, which I just, again, posted to a friend, is that, it's very empowering for women. But both this in 1970, this magazine in 1978, and the book in 1983, it borders on the cringe. And I don't mean to be woke. I'm not going there now because I'm not of that generation. The woke kids are the ones that are watching movies from our time and, suggesting that, what we watched, that we were okay with date rape and physical abuse and stuff. Well, there's definitely a point to it now, but back when we were watching, of course, it was nothing, it's humor. It's fun, but anyway, I don't want to go off on that tangent. But when you read this gentleman's book, he, on one hand, he'll start going on about how, you know, you're a lady and you deserve to go do whatever you want to do, and this is the protection you need to take and what have you. But if you were wearing that outfit, I mean, you probably don't want to wear that outfit. So he's like pro women, and then, well, you know, if you're wearing a certain something, you know, maybe. It's just really just is real cringy on that. And you kind of disappointing. And probably something when you read it in the 70s or 80s, you would have been like, oh, yeah, I mean, I would try not to wear something. But of course, by today's standards, you're like, screw you, just because I wear this outfit or something, you know. But, you know, again, came out in 1983. So what are you going to do? It's both empowering and you just want to chuck it across the room. So this is the cover of the book. There's a little narrative, a little bit where they kind of, you know, pop up and talk about working with Fleetwood Mac, but then he specifically shows, you know, talks about working with Christine. And then I think Frida and Anna from ABBA. And then that picture again with Stevie. Linda Ronstadt. I think that's virtually it. But then, yeah, it gets into some weird crap later on, and you know, I mean, it's got the moves. I mean, you know, you'll definitely learn how to punch in all the right spots and stuff like that. But it's just the terminology and the way it's worded that goes with it that's just like, you know, like I said, a little cringy. So, but this is a really cool book to find. And it's hard to find, and this is in really good shape, if only just for the cover. And equally as difficult to find is the magazine. The magazine had been on eBay not too long ago. You might be able to find one or the other on Amazon, but really, of course, they're great companion pieces. And just heads up for you photo completists like me, there are a handful more of photos. I don't know where they're at. They just are on the internet and such. I don't know if they've been published elsewhere. You would think that all the photos that, you know, were to be had, Bob and Stevie working together, you know, would have been in either the magazine or the book, but there are a handful more of those photos. So those are two things from the 70s, 80s that are kind of interest again in the book, you know, in the little book realm. Getting a little bit ahead. I think let's see, where was I? So that was 1983 was that book. Then this book was kind of there's not a date in here. It doesn't really matter. This book was kind of one of those ones that, again, when you're collecting in the early days, you know, you're just trying to find out what you could, you know, with Stevie or Fleetwood Mac. You know, as you can see, and as I mentioned in the first video, you know, I don't grab everything that mentions them, but, you know, in the early days, this would have been something I would have sought out. Just because at the time the photos were kind of unique. The karate books were definitely something I would have sought out. Song books were something I probably would have found, you know, in regular shopping. So now it's kind of a thing. I'm actually kind of getting more into finding the rest of the song books. I'm really into sheet music right now, trying to find a lot of sheet music that I didn't get back in the day. But this book is a cool little book. It's also cool because it's full of 80 stars in general. So if you're a fan of, you know, Stevie, Debbie, Bowie, Queen, everybody, I also really love Debbie Harry. Kate Bush is in here, and there's some great photos of her. Right inside the cover is another brilliant photo of Debbie Harry, just stunning, just beautiful. But then there's this cool little part on Stevie. She's not even mentioned on the cover. But that picture was, at the time, I believe this was the first place that picture with Miss Piggy was. And then the sitting, as you know, I've mentioned, like from my records and such, that's a really one of my absolute favorite sessions. But this picture was new then when this book came out. And you've got this photo of her and Chris here. And then this cool photo of Stevie by herself. Now, this whole book is sex and rock, so it really wants to exploit, the sex, drugs, and rock and roll of the time, and the, um, scandalous wardrobes and layouts and such like that of concerts and how they perform and stuff like that. By today it's ridiculous. I mean, you're like, it's nothing compared to what we have out there. But when this book came out, it was kind of like, oh my goodness, the Tubes or something. If you know the Tubes, they have particularly scandalous shows. And this book just wants to capitalize on that. But again, at the time, it was just really about those pictures of Stevie, and I couldn't wait to get it. It was another cool thing to have. So yeah, not a necessary book, just a cool one. So there's that one. And I believe this came out, I don't know why there's no date on it, but I want to say the late 70s, early 80s. And continuing on, probably next would be the Bible. You know what I'm going to show, don't you? The Bible. Actually, no, I jumped ahead one book, but that's okay. We'll start with this one because this one, this came out in 1985. And boy, when I first saw it, I found it at, there's so many bookstores that I frequented when I was young, or like in the malls and such like this, but there's a strip mall in the town that I grew up in, and we hardly ever, I don't even know why I would have been in that vicinity to go to that particular bookstore, but they had it. And when I found it, boy, I sure did. I really asked mom and dad. I never especially got an allowance. I got so I never had money on my own technically, but I did things like my chores and stuff like that. So then my mom always took me to Tower and always got me something. So I didn't have in my hand maybe, but I always got taken to go get things because I'd done my chores. So in essence, an allowance. So often you'll hear me say I begged my parents. When I say that, I'm an only child. And I often begged my parents because they're suckers and, we're very close. And when this Stevie situation was brought on and was in its early budding, they just were so tired of hearing her and can I get this and can I get that? But they did. They might still. I'm just saying. I'm 54, but they might still do for me all the time when they can. But yeah, I remember just begging my mom and to try and get and also to go back to that specific bookstore. My mom's like, why were we even there or something like that? But we had to go to that one. I couldn't find it in another. Probably could have ordered it somewhere else, but I didn't know that then. But what's funny about this book is that I called the Bible because it is a book about Stevie Nicks. And, at the time, it was the only thing. Now anybody big hits it, there's 50 books. I mean, Jesus, how many books are there on Taylor Swift and Harry Styles? I mean, it's ridiculous. BTS, Blackpink, all that stuff. You know what I mean? But one book on Stevie, and this book could not be more wrong. This is just everything you ever wanted to know about Stevie and never will, because the facts are not in this book. This book is bass backwards. It is phenomenal. It is one of the greatest things ever, but it's chock full of bad, wrong information. I mean, it's funny like that. You look back on it. I read it several times. Even probably then, I knew some of it wasn't right. It's fun and everything like that, but it's just, I don't even know that they have her birthday right. It just seems to me like, just there's a lot of stuff. My mom was finally able to get it for me, and I don't remember how much it was. There's no price on it. The pictures inside are kind of like, there's some okay stuff. There's nothing really rare. I think it was this one that I found to be the kind of the coolest in there. It is falling apart, unfortunately. Just now showing that a little piece came out, which is very unfortunate. But when she got it for me, I was starting my freshman year of high school, not too long afterwards. And I had some girlfriends there, and I didn't have like a lot of friends or anything like that. And, these girls, it was 3 sisters. They were really nice, triplets, really nice girls. And they were like, "Oh my God, that's so cool. Where'd you get that? Blah, blah." And they're like, "Can we borrow it? We'll read it together and, we'll get it." They were really nice. And I didn't have a lot of friends. And somebody wanting to borrow something of mine, like, I didn't try to buy or need to buy friends. I wasn't that kind of person. I either had them or I didn't. But, I'm like, "Oh my God, somebody else who's into Stevie Nicks. Yeah, of course you can." And it just, as fate would have it, I know for a fact they never intentionally tried to keep it or steal it or anything like that. It's just, high school, and they never got it back to me. And I'd ask them, and they're like, "Oh my God, Anita, we're so sorry." And, we'll all ask one sister and the other. And then I moved out of the city and never found it again. And it took me years to reobtain this. And funny enough, I obtained it from what was once a really great friend, Stevie fan in Germany. She gifted it to me. And then I did this video and something had gone wrong with it. But I had opened up the paperback because I'd made a joke in the earlier video that I made in Scratch that I may or may not have written my name in it, which I'm sure I didn't, but I can't really confirm or deny. And come to find out, this book was given to somebody from Jean Enlow, which was a name I was going to be bringing up a lot more often. And last night, I had just happened to ask my friend about that girl's name, if I had her first and last name correct. And Jean Enlow, who probably a lot of you know, I don't know who all exactly is watching, was a huge, huge Stevie fan. And my friend didn't know her, but her friends did, and they're really close to her. And I don't know if she's close to Stevie. I don't know, or just so close to somebody, maybe Chris, maybe, I'm not really sure. I just know that probably if she were alive today, because she passed away some time ago, that she would be doing what I'm doing right now, or she'd have the site, or she'd have 10 books out by now, because she was a big fan. That's about all I know about her, which makes her freaking awesome in my book. No pun intended. And so funny that I'd done this video last night and made a joke about writing my name in the book, and then I opened this and saw it, and I didn't know that I ever caught that before, and I thought it was just kind of spooky, kind of a funny thing. And plus, there's also a cool little clipping in here from Street Angel, which I thought was kind of cool, which I need to actually keep out so I can scrapbook. But yeah, so just kind of weird, right? But this book had her chart in it, Stevie Nicks' astrological chart, and all sorts of stuff. But it's just it's fun. It's very dear to me. I hold it in my heart. But if you want to find out about Stevie, do not read this book. It's just this is just a fun. Imagine TMZ wrote a book on Stevie, or your friend who's just getting into Fleetwood Mac and Stevie Nicks wrote a book on Stevie. That's how this would be. Most of us here visiting who are watching probably could write a better book. And I'm absolutely 100% that this person who wrote this is Ethel. I've never known how to say that. Ethel Ann Vare and Ed Oakes are both fans. I have no doubt about it. I'm sure this was done with a lot of love, but like I said, the inconsistencies and inaccuracies are mind-boggling. And but it's written more like from a fan point of view and 80s. It's just it's just written to go out there, not for any astute to going down it. The Library of Congress is like one of the greatest books ever written about an artist or something like that. No, that's not this one. So, but it is definitely worth having. This used to go for a lot of money. This used to be like it's hard to find. Obviously, it's been out of print for ages. There is I use the word manuscript. I'm not sure if that's right, but there's a version that's written of it that's on eBay often. I've never seen anybody buy it, but it's like, I'm just going to say the manuscript. It's the whole book with like the corrections and comments and notes and stuff on the side. And it goes for about $600-700. When it first came to eBay, it was like $10,000 or something. It's just got lower and lower and lower. And I don't think anybody's ever bought it. It'd be a cool thing to have and read. And then read this just to see where they were at. But finding one of these, if you can, I would definitely get it just for the collectability aspect, not for a solid book on Stevie Nicks. But yeah, like I said, they used to be collectible at about the $100-200 rate. Now you might find one for $40, $20. You might still find them for $200. It's just kind of hard to say, but that is the story on this book. And like I said, it's a keeper. It's pretty funny. Next up, I had shown with my mixed Mac media, there had been a VHS compilation with a book on Mirage. And so when I showed the VHS, I showed the accompanying book. And I mentioned that when I did my book part, I would go a little bit more into this book. Unfortunately, it's from Madrid, Spain. And I say unfortunately, I mean that I can't read it because it's in Spanish. But it does appear it's got a lot of cool pictures in it. Nothing really, unseen or anything like that. But it does appear to break down the songs, the lyrics, everything that's in the video. It goes up as far. It's really strange. It's got a weird little discography, and it goes. There's a story, and it appears like maybe there's some old stuff in here, and then it looks like it focuses on Mirage because that's what the VHS is. So it's the HBO Fleetwood Mac Live from 1982, and then there's a videography and a bibliography, and then there's selections. I think that says songs because I'm guessing because then there's just a ton of lyrics, random. You got Crystal, you have Rhiannon, Over My Head. Then it goes all the way up to Gypsy, Love is Dangerous, Seven Wonders, Behind the Mask. So this obviously came out later than the 1982 special. I believe it's Video Rock Salvat is the company, and it looks like they also might have done a series of different VHS book companion things on different artists. I found it on eBay, and I was really more about the book and the VHS. I mean, it was kind of cool to have another copy, but I just thought it was cool that it came with this little book. So I thought I'd share that. It does not say on the VHS or the book when it came out. I'm pretty sure. Let me double check. I lie. 1991. But I would definitely try and find this. It's just really unique, just a really cool little item, again, to have in the collection. So there's that. Going back as if we were in somewhat kind of order, because we absolutely are not. In 1985, I was in, this book came out. I know I was somewhere in 1985, but I'm all over the place, and I do apologize. I don't know if any of you read my comments, my little description, but I've been on some medications. I've got kidney stones, and so I'm doing my best here, completely coherent and with you here, but just, my normal scatterbrain with a little bit of that going on. So I apologize. I was in a bookstore not too long ago and had come across this one in like the $2 bin, and I went absolutely nuts over it. If you're an 80s person like I am, it's a great book, period. It's just chock full of 80s stuff. And it's just the rock video book. Think you know a lot about your favorite video rockers, their history, their performances, their directors, their songwriters, their intimate personal habits. And it's just a lot of like questions and answers. Like there's all these things, like for example, I got it because I would have got it anyway, but of course right away I was so stoked that there's something on Fleetwood Mac. And I was really stoked to find out that it wasn't your average what you'd find in a book, but instead concentrated more on the video by Christine for Level Shows How and the video for Lindsay for Go Insane. Because usually things in the 80s, especially MTV related stuff, are going to concentrate more on Fleetwood Mac's Hold Me or Gypsy or Stevie Nicks' Stand Back. And even though both these videos were pretty prominent in the 80s and repeatedly shown and great in their own way, they don't get talked about nearly as much as, say, the Hold Me or the Stand Back videos. But, it'll just pop off with like little questions like, hold on to your brain. Here comes the weird stuff. Lindsay notices something strange happening to his guitar shortly after he puts it down. What happens? So it's just like asking what your knowledge of the videos is. And then in the back, there's a whole answer thing per page. So let's see, for 30, where is it at here? And then later in the book, it will get into kind of little facts, random facts about other stuff. I think Mirage is brought up here a couple times. I think Stevie is brought up here, but just in question, no further photos or anything like that. But like I said, they'll ask the questions in there, and then there's just like a whole slew of answers in the back. So it's kind of almost like a trivia book. It doesn't say that, because for as many little questions as there is, then next to it, there's a bunch of like little blurbs about the video. So it's not just trivia. Here is kind of sort of like trivia, and then here's just little stuff about the videos behind the scenes and stuff. So I loved it, again, being a whole 80s book, but I really especially loved it because it featured Chris and Lindsay. So this is kind of one of my favorite things just because it's a little bit different. And like I said, I found this for a couple bucks, so it was a win-win for me. So the rock videos book. So that was kind of cool. Next up, I would say we have coming out in 1984, if I'm not mistaken, correct, would be Steve Clark's Fleetwood Mac book. Here we have again another book where we've got a little bit more time invested with Fleetwood Mac. By 84, everybody's gone solo at least once, and we've had Mirage. So we've had since the first video, the books that I had shown you, I think we'd only gotten up as far as Rumors. Probably by the time the books came out, they were doing Mirage, a Tusk and or the live album, but we hadn't had it out yet. Well, by this time, that's been out. So there's a little bit more information. There's a little bit more depth to the Fleetwood Mac that contains Stevie Nicks and Lindsey Buckingham. But This is still an early Fleetwood Mac, takes up, this much, and Lindsay and Stevie take up this much. Not exactly, but kind of like that. And this is a fun book, but it's still, again, just a revisioning. We'll start at the beginning and we'll go all the way up. We'll intersperse it with some articles or interview quotes and such. Not too much more given, and not a bad way. It's just again a nice little book. This is another one. I remember exactly where I was at, where my mom was working, what bookstore I found it in, where it was at. Funny as hell. Begging, Mom, can I have $11, which I think probably at the time was a bit of money, to get a book. And compared to the paperback, which came out, about a year later, and I'm not saying I'm probably highly doubtful that I got them in the same year, but this looked to be even though there's a U.S. price on it, this looks to be a UK released book in general. So probably coming, would have been called an import. It's just a book, but having it in, I just forgot the name of the main bookstore that was in the mall in the 80s. I can't believe I just forgot that. If you heard it, you would know. Surprised there's no sticker. But anyway, finally I was able to. There's some great pictures in it. This is definitely the book that I got when my mom finally said, yes, fine, okay, shut up. Just kidding. And I was really stoked that there were some color pictures in here, especially from Raj. Stevie wearing that during the Fleetwood Mac special. I just love that little piece. There's a nice picture in here again from Christine's where is it? From her music video. So it's nice to have some color photos. Again, even at the time, even for me at the time, it was kind of funny because those pictures weren't exactly unseen. They weren't, those commonplace as they are, as pictures in general are to me now, but nonetheless, and I loved reading it and stuff. And, it's another one of those books that, kind of goes back and forth, but it's not exactly especially informative. It just another very standard good. It's a good Fleetwood Mac book, but it's nothing you're going to like, really archive deep, deep dive into to get facts and go forward on it. But it is one of the earlier books on Fleetwood Mac, so for that alone, it's pretty cool. Again, a discography. And then all these other kind of books you could buy in the back, which is such a big deal in the 80s. Next up, I'm going to show the, this one's kind of funny, the We Are the World. Everything Fleetwood Mac, right? And what do we got right here? Of course, as we all know, we got Lindsay right there. I don't know if anybody had seen the documentary on Netflix, which was kind of cool, the anniversary of this. Obviously, the important people, the heavy hitters for this were Quincy Jones, Michael Jackson, Lionel Richie, Cyndi Lauper at the time because she was big, Huey Lewis. But Lindsey Buckingham was involved, and as far as I'm concerned, Lindsay's a heavy hitter. And, part of such a big band as Fleetwood Mac, I think it's important that, it's really pretty cool that somebody from Fleetwood Mac was a part of this. It would have been cool if somebody from Fleetwood Mac was a part of some of these other big things that came out in the 80s. But I think it's great that Lindsay was there. I have quite a few things from We Are the World, just trying to find pictures of Lindsay. Press photos and such. Right there, I think. And it's hard to find pictures with him because he's one of the artists who really just came in, kind of rolled in, did his business, and left, like so many others did, but didn't hang around as much because, there's definitely kind of a little clique with Quincy and Michael and everybody else, which I'm not saying anything bad. Just they were all hanging out, and lots of photos by Sam Emerson. He must have had a wonderful time there. Great picture of Lindsay with Kim Carnes, they work together as well. Yeah, every time I can, I try and find something. Like if anything comes out about this, I try and scope it out and see if I can find any new stuff with Lindsay in there. And I was actually surprised because this book probably had about the most in group shots where you can see Lindsay. There's several photos that are out, and you see his hair. Like, I'm 99% sure most of the time that's what you see of Lindsay. It's just the hair or an arm. You don't see his face. So it was nice, getting this book and seeing more of him and his involvement and stuff. So yeah. He's not really spoken about too much either. I mean, there's the part where he comes in and, and which artists thrive and what have you and stuff like that, but it's very brief. And, but, if you're a Lindsay fan, cool little book to have in addition to the album and the 45. So I'm going to wrap up this video, which has gone a little bit longer than I meant to, but it's kind of off course from the one I did last night, which is just as well, because I think the next one I'm going to make, and you'll see why, is going to be kind of unto itself. But I wanted to close out the video because it was hard for me to not make fun of myself last night. This book is absolutely one of my absolute most favorite collectibles that I have altogether. I saw this on eBay probably in the 90s. I don't know why I didn't buy it. I don't know if it showed up and somebody else bought it or I missed the auction. I have no idea. But I always wondered what it was. And it just says Fleetwood Mac everywhere. And then A to Z with a catalog number. Then on the back, A to Z as well, with the cute little more artwork from Tango in the Night. And this is reminiscent of the artwork on everywhere and some of the other, I think some on the 45s and such. And then all the hack mark information at the bottom here. And then probably about 5-6 years ago, another one popped up on eBay, and I immediately lunged for it. I think it was starting bid like $3. I don't know. I don't care. I emailed that person and I'm like, I need this like tomorrow in the mail. I need it right now. What's your buy it now price? I don't care. And I got it for a pretty good deal. And I think they had two, but the other one was kind of messed up. And I'm kind of disappointed I didn't buy the other one just for the obscurity of it. But I still had no idea what it was. I'd heard what it was, but all it is literally maps to London. There's nothing about Fleetwood Mac inside. The Fleetwood Maciest part of this is this part. This part. Not even on the side. Nothing. Nothing on the side. Nothing. But that said, it is just so laugh all you want, because I was laughing at myself last night because when I went to talk about it, I got as animated as I kind of am now. Where did this come from? Who did it get sent out to? Did it get sent out from from the label to executives in the UK, in the US, everywhere? I'm from the Bay Area where we have BART, and when you go into BART, which is the Bay Area Rapid Transit, you go into BART, once you got through the gates, and they would have those little pamphlet holders with all the different little maps you could get of the Bay Area if you're a tourist or whatever, or just the BART train pamphlet. Were these presented for tourists? Were these free? Was there just a whole bunch of these out there? What? Why are they so obscure? Why is there no information more about them? Like, there is not a lick about Fleetwood Mac in here after that. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Even the back part is just about the map maker and map press. I think it's brilliant. I think it's adorable with the title, with everywhere, and then the fact that they put the little maps in there. I think it's just a cool little piece, but it's just so random, so absolutely random, and I absolutely love it. And I was so thrilled to get a copy. And I imagine that probably of all the Fleetwood Mac stuff that I have, I think, again, its obscurity is probably because people got them and maybe just chucked them, or just, I'm sure this is way outdated, and I'm sure it took no time, if this came out in 87 or 88 to be outdated. Maps get outdated pretty quickly, which is why we have them on our phone now. But yeah, I just thought it was funny. They're beautiful maps inside. I love maps also. But yeah, I just thought this was really cool, and definitely a favorite piece in my collection. And it's a book, right? Qualifies as a book, as far as I'm concerned. So I'd be interested to know if anybody else has this, if you've seen it, if you think it's at all remotely cool, or if I'm just a weirdo. Totally fine by me. If you have any of the other books, do you have the hands-off book? Do you the video book? Any of that, I'd love to know. So thank you for joining me, and we'll see you next time with part 3. I'm going to get into Mick Fleetwood's biography, and I definitely have some opinions on that. So thanks again, and we'll see you next time. Have a great night. Bye.